Welcome to Cedar Falls News, a special program produced by the Advanced Reporting and UNI-TV classes. We have a breaking story on our hands, the impact of which is yet to be determined, but here is what we know so far. Long-term Mayor John Cruz has abandoned his plan to face off challenger Jim Brown in a runoff election on December 1st. I'm Carly Hansen.
And I'm Zane Phillips. As the story unfolds, we are trying to make sense of it. In a telephone interview had earlier today with the Advanced Reporting class, Cruz said he felt relieved when he came to the decision to drop out of the race. He said he had planned to retire in 2 years anyway, so when his campaign chair spoke about the issues in the runoff, they came to the conclusion that it would be the best to walk away now.
In his 30-year career, Cruz has been a part of 3 runoffs, but quit before he tackled a 4th one. This will be the first time Cruz has been in a runoff in over 15 years, with voter turnout being the highest Cedar Falls has seen in 12 years. On November 3rd, 10% separated the incumbent Cruz from his opponent, with Brown ending the night in the lead. We have a guest in the studio who agreed to come on short notice. Councilman Nick Tabor has been a long-standing advocate of smart government in Cedar Falls. Let's go to our panel of student reporters for insights.
So not only are we here with Nick Tabor, we're also here with Mayor John Cruz himself. We also have Drew and Luda, and we are going to talk to both of them about the events at hand. So starting off, Mayor Cruz, at what point did you decide that the race was over for you?
Okay, first of all, my wife and I talked a year ago about running again and when would I retire. I've been mayor for 30 years and I was 69 last Friday, so I was going to retire soon. And actually, I hadn't announced that, but I said to my wife we would run one more time and then I would retire in 2 years. And so that was the plan, so retire in the short term. And then after Tuesday's results came, I think all 3 of you were there, and so since Tuesday to here, my wife and I talked, and I had a person on my campaign said, why don't you consider retiring now? I mean, it's a grueling thing with a campaign of all 3 months during the summer, and I probably knocked on about 5,000 doors, and I had volunteers knock on another 2,000 doors, and we had somebody follow me around here. He wore his Cardinal hat, and Cub fans about kicking him out of their house. But anyway, we got through it. But it's a long process, and so that night he suggested maybe you just retire now instead of in 2 years. And a runoff, as it said, I've been in 3 runoffs and I won those 3 runoffs that I run in. So, but they're very, very hard, and there's no guarantee you win. So I thought about it, and I just talked to my wife and people, and I said okay. So actually today I announced that to some media, and so I'm here after about 3 hours after announcing it. So, and just the media, it used to be the newspaper would get it and they put it the next day, and I talked to the newspaper, and about 5 minutes later it was
right. Must have been an exhausting morning for you.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, Channel 9, Channel 7, and 3 or 4 radio stations called, and so where'd you hear that? I saw it on the newspaper. It wasn't a newspaper. It was on there online. So it's a lot of change in media.
Do you think that you would be here, and you think that you would still be in the race if you had been up at the end of the night on Tuesday?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know I've been up, been behind and up, and I'm not sure. It was going to be a grueling race anyway, whether it was ahead or behind, and there's different strategies you use. But like I said, I'm not sure because it didn't happen, so you could hypothesize that. But I just know in the past it's been very hard, and plus some people said, well, you got to go out and get negative, and I don't like to campaign negative. The whole campaign was about what's happened in Cedar Falls, good things, and so I wanted to keep that going, and didn't want to get into attacking somebody. So I decided I'm 69, so I have 7 grandkids, or it's 5 grandkids, 2 on the way, and so my wife has some projects, so I'm retiring to something, not from something, and I've enjoyed it, so but it's still hard to retire from something you enjoy.
Yeah. So does this mean just spend more time at home then for you, and spend time with family then?
Not much home, but I mean traveling some, and my wife's got a couple projects here in the community, so I would be involved in the community. And I've talked to Mr. Brown this morning. I would like to help transition from, and that's better to spend 2 months transitioning than campaigning and so on. So it's much more pleasurable, and I know there's a lot of issues facing Cedar Falls, and the biggest thing is right after January, you got to start in the budget, and that's the biggest document and the most important thing, because you decide where to spend how much money, and so that's something he's going to have to get his arms around real soon, and also there's goal setting this month, and so I got 4 more meetings, so I will finish the end of this year.
What do you think your biggest legacy is? I mean, you're mayor for 30 years.
Yeah,
You've done a lot. What do you think is the most
it's hard to say. I mean, I knocked on a door, not the day you were with me, but when I knocked on a door and somebody said, I really appreciate, every day I wake up in Cedar Falls, I'm grateful. So, and there's a whole lot of things, and a lot of people have worked on a lot of projects, and quality of life is really high in Industrial Park. So if you look around Cedar Falls, and that's why I enjoy local politics, because you can look out and see, in a couple of years, sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. We developed an industrial park. We opened it right before John Deere's laid off 12,000 people and the economy went into the farm recession. So for 10 years it just sat there. So sometimes you got to stay with things. And so after that, the roads went in, and so now we have a thriving industrial park in the south and the one in the north. So sometimes you have to work on stuff and be patient. But the city as a whole, because of all the people willing to participate and volunteer, we had this summer, we had Sturgis Falls, and one weekend, about 2 weeks later, Ragbri came in. Each of them required about 500 volunteers, so it's really neat to see all that stuff. So I didn't create that. It's just, it's great to be in a city that people are willing to work hard. And there's all kinds of things around the community. Obviously, UNI is our biggest assets. The utilities is great, the schools, so it's all kinds of great assets. So there's no one thing, but it's a great city, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of it.
So, and then you mentioned that you talked to Jim Brown today.
Yep.
So, what advice would you give him for the future? You mentioned a little bit about the budget, but what other, just kind of goals? You would advise?
Like we talked about, that there's goal setting coming up. The council every year meets I think next week, and they talk about big, long-term goals. There's a 2025 planning process going right now that's facilitated by a UNI process, Institute for Decision Making. So that's something he should get involved in. Because you got 32 people trying to do long-term planning for the city. So if you have a good plan, you have a better opportunity to be somewhere good. So doing that, and we have a great staff, and just listen to the staff, and there's 7 council members that are willing to help make things move forward. So listen to people around you, and you got a good thing going. So
okay, do you kind of want to add to that? How is going to be for you to cooperate with the new mayor, Jim Brown?
Both John and Jim, I think, have a lot of similar attributes. Their number one interest, of course, is the advancement and betterment of Cedar Falls. And so, I have no doubt that, under either leader, Cedar Falls wouldn't move forward. But a lot of it is to Mayor Cruz's credit, because he's always surrounded himself and encouraged staff to be the very best that it can be, giving them enough latitude to pursue projects of greatest return for the citizens. And so we have a lot of the building blocks and assets in place to continue this forward momentum.
Thank you.
I think that is all the time that we have. I want to say thank you to Mayor Cruz for coming in, and Nick Tiber, both of you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, your busy day. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So I think we're going to head back over to the desk now, where we have some other campaign results. So we'll take it back over to Carly and Zane now.
Thanks, Anton. The third candidate, Dave Halterman, earned 20% of the vote. In other contested races for city council positions, the voters retained 2 long-term council members and greenlighted a political newcomer.
In Ward 4, first-time councilman Tom Blanford unseated Jim Stitcher in a nail-biting race with just 32 votes, winning 51% to Stitcher's 48%. The race was close for the at-large position as well, but Dave Wieland outlasted Tyler Trunnell by 83 votes. Ward 2 Councilwoman Susan DeBurr was the only incumbent who won by a landslide, garnering 62% of the vote, while her opponent Kyle Helland received 37%.
Let's see how the night unfolded for the mayoral candidates. Our reporters were on site, getting a first-hand look at the candidates as they saw the results come in, and at the courthouse as they watched the events unfold.
Well, we held the election for all the cities in Black Hawk County, and we provided all the supplies for the precinct election officials and trained them, and so the election was held in those precincts all day long, and they got us results at the end of the day, and we tabulated those results and made them available to the public. The results are unofficial until canvassed by the Board of Supervisors. The cities of Waterloo and Cedar Falls, the canvass will be held on Thursday because they both have the runoff provision in their code of ordinances, which means that you have to get a majority vote to be elected. And in Cedar Falls mayor's race, Waterloo mayor's race, and Waterloo Ward 4, nobody got a majority, so there will be runoff elections in all of those unless something changes drastically at the canvass, which we don't expect. And so those runoff elections will be held on December 1st. Go through pretty much the same process again that we did for today. It'll be a little less work, but still, it's still most of the precincts in the county that will be voting. So there'll be absentee voting again, and we'll be setting up all those precincts and the voting machines for those precincts, and have another election in 4 weeks. I got here about 6 a.m. There were people that were already here. Some of them anxiously awaiting me because I was bringing donuts. And what time is it now? It's almost 10 o'clock. Things are getting wrapped up pretty quickly now, so should be out of here by 10:30.
Very good.
Our point of view is usually a little different from the public or the candidates, the people involved in the campaigns. They're, wishing and hoping for their candidate to do well, and we're wishing and hoping that everything's going to go smoothly. And today things went very smoothly, and we're very happy about that.
So Drew, you were at the courthouse that night, but you were focused specifically on Cruz. Cruz was the only mayoral candidate that was at the courthouse. Everyone else was at their own parties. So can you give us kind of a taste as to what Cruz was like on election night?
Yeah, there was a lot of media there, and obviously everyone was there to capture the mayor's reaction. But let me show you how it looked. On November 3rd, 2015, it was election night at the Black Hawk County Courthouse in Waterloo. The election night started out slow as the results began to trickle in. Inside the courthouse on the second floor, current mayor of Cedar Falls, John Cruz, and his family, which included his daughter, granddaughter, wife, and son, were eagerly waiting to see how this year's election would turn out. In the end, this year's election ended without a majority winner, sending the election into a runoff between John Cruz and Jim Brown. Shortly after the results were announced, I was able to ask both John Cruz and his wife what their immediate reactions to this year's outcome was.
This is the results at this moment, and it will be a runoff in probably in a month's time.
Did you expect a runoff tonight?
I didn't expect either one. I didn't expect to lose. I could expect it to win or run off, so I'm not surprised. I know that Mr. Brown ran a very high finance campaign and started early, and it's projected to a lot of people. So I look forward to continue discussing with Cedar Falls residents the issues that face the city, and I will continue to run on the record I have, and I appreciate the support I've had. I've been in runoffs before, so it's not a new experience. It's not something I look forward to, but it's something that happens from their system. So I look forward to talking to citizens of Cedar Falls about our collective future.
Now, what's in store for you for the next 4 weeks?
Well, it's obviously going out to the voters and getting, maybe convincing some that voted for the other candidate, or other ones to change their mind, or people that didn't vote. The majority of people did not vote in Cedar Falls. I'm not sure exactly the number of registered voters, but there's 6,000 plus voters, so the majority did not vote. So trying to identify who didn't vote and getting some more of those to the polls, and maybe switching some votes of Jim. And so it was 2 or 3 targeted groups you have to look at.
What about Halterman's votes? Do you expect any of those will come your way?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on why they voted for Dave, and so he ran a very spirited, passionate campaign. So, I mean, those are votes, he can't give them to anybody, but obviously they go to one of us, or they won't vote. I mean, there's 3 things: they can vote for me or Jim, or not vote.
121.
So I would concentrate on all voters in Cedar Falls, and obviously work towards getting continued support to continue with the progress we've made the last 3 years. Falls Avenue. This is what down the steps. I don't know.
Okay.
He's talking about we're sitting in the courthouse and move over just briefly.
At the end of the night, his voice sounded confident, but he also seemed ready to leave.
Jim Brown, on the other hand, did his best to spend his evening as far away from the courthouse as possible. He was surrounded by friends and family at the pump house in Cedar Falls. Morgan, what was it like to be at Brown's party?
It was lively and dynamic with friends and family cheering as the results rolled in. As a journalist, I found it very eye-opening. See for yourself in this next package.
On November 3rd, Jim Brown awaited the voting results at Pump House in downtown Cedar Falls with his family, friends, and supporters.
A little anxious. It's great to have a lot of people here, friends and supporters of all sorts. So it's very exciting. It's very humbling. They're here because of the effort we put forth the last 9 months. But it is anxious if I think about the results and that's to come. And after those results come, what's next?
I'm supporting Jim Brown primarily because I just know him as a person, and I know the high quality character that he has, and I believe that he would take those same skills to the office of mayor, and that to me is very, very important, the quality and the character of the person.
You know, the process has been, it's almost like Jim had another full-time job on top of what he did. So everything he said he was going to do, he did. So I'm proud of him for his efforts, but it's definitely required the girls and I, Sylvia and Annie, to do more, to kind of like to pick up the slack, because he's just been extremely busy.
We're going to put it in, what we're going to put on TV, what kind of brochures we're going to have. We worked that all out, everything that involves the campaign. The three of us got together, and we planned the campaign, what he was going to do.
To win outright, a candidate would need to claim at least 50% of the votes. Brown was nearly there with 45% of the vote, while Cruz came in at a close 35% and Halterman with the remaining 20%.
It's been interesting and challenging. We prepared early on because it wasn't as busy, but as it got real busy and school started, summer started, the girls and their activities, in our normal world we were busy, and now this just accentuated it probably fivefold. So we've hung tough, married a very wonderful lady, and have two great daughters, so they know what it's all about.
Brown remained in the lead throughout the entirety of the voting process, unofficially winning the election by nearly 700 votes. After 10 months of campaigning, Brown's work has almost paid off. He appears very humbled and remains both excited and anxious for the future of the mayoral election.
Thanks to everybody here who came out. I'm very humbled. 10 months ago, I announced our campaign for being mayor of Cedar Falls. We believe we had the vision to point to, the vision of Cedar Falls, that we'd actually listen, communicate with the people and staff, and bring a vision to Cedar Falls where the residents would come together after being a little bit divisive there. And as you all know, the 3 points was business development, communication, and leadership. So this campaign's not over yet. Over the next month, we'll need to raise some more money, get the people out to vote for this important runoff. Now we can get this thing going and get out the win.
Campaigning is now back in full swing, and Brown looks to the citizens of Cedar Falls for their continued support.
Jim's campaign managers, and we need your help, folks. Jim just mentioned we need some more dollars, that's true, but we also need a lot of volunteer help.
Though Brown did win a majority of the votes, a late entrance by candidate Halterman seems to be the determining factor of the upcoming runoff between Cruz and Brown. The runoff is set to take place on December 1st.
At the end of the night, Brown seems excited and ready to roll up his sleeves and keep pushing for the next month. As you know, he is a member of the school board and knows how to overcome challenges.
That was very different than how Cruz spent his evening. And as I understand it, Halterman also partied with his supporters.
Yes, it was a long night for our team, and we learned a lot and met plenty of Halterman supporters. Jim Brown had told Halterman that his presence in the race would split the vote, but Halterman chose to continue his run for the office. And here what we saw on the election night at the Halterman's party.
All right, so I'm here with candidate Halterman, election night. So today is the day. What's your feeling?
Real positive. I understand turnout's been strong, and that's a good thing. People are out exercising their vote, and that's what America's all about.
Absolutely. And as we can see, quite a few people turned up in support for David Halterman, who remained in good spirits all night. So obviously it's been a long fight now. What are you going to do tomorrow?
Sleep in.
Yeah.
It's been pretty treacherous for me. I entered the race late, August 21st, so I had basically 2 months. So I've been working long hours every day. And I got a lot of honeydews built up that I haven't been taking care of. So I'm going to sleep in, and the wife's got the rest of the week off on vacation. We're just going to sort of recharge the batteries a little bit.
All right. Thank you very much.
It seemed that even though Halterman got a lower percentage of the votes, his spirits weren't down and he had a good time nonetheless. Election night was the culmination of months of hard work. Our reporters followed the candidates leading up to the election, talking to them and witnessing how they interact with the voters on the campaign trail. With Halterman stepping into the race at a late stage, he had a limited window of opportunity to campaign for potential supporters. However, he seized the opportunity to set himself apart from his opponents at the candidate forum hosted by the Blackhawk Bremer League of Women Voters at the City Hall in Cedar Falls on October 15th. Reporters Simon and Luda covered the story. Let's take a look.
I believe the mayor should manage by these principles. First, listen to the people. The citizens will tell you what's important. Listening to the people, fiscally responsible spending of the taxpayers' dollars are the most crucial problems facing Cedar Falls. Mayor of Cedar Falls have a lot to say. And as mayor, I will truly listen. Whether it is University Avenue or any other project, I will spend the Cedar Falls taxpayer dollars wisely. I am committed to making sure your voice is heard. I will talk to city employees, and I will listen to their problems and concerns. I will encourage courteous debate at the city council because I believe good decisions will result. As the candidate of change, I will lead Cedar Falls back to that sense of community and operate from the people's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about the firefighters. We are playing with people's lives. Let me give you an example. We don't have enough career firefighters on staff. Cedar Falls supplies public safety to the University of Northern Iowa. God forbid one of those high buildings has a fire. You will not have enough career firefighters on duty to save the people in the building. That's factual.
We decided as a Cedar Falls Firefighters Association to support Dave Halterman in his mayoral candidacy because we feel that his views towards career police and firefighters more closely align with what ours as an association is. He feels very strongly about career police and firefighters and the need for adequate public safety staffing levels across the city of Cedar Falls, and that's something that we've fought our current administration for, and that's why we believe that Dave Halterman is the best candidate for mayor of Cedar Falls.
Even with a shorter opportunity to campaign, Halterman gained the supporters of Cedar Falls firefighters. The firefighters banked on Halterman, but since he is no longer running, the elected mayor will need to address their concerns. In fact, there has been quite a lot of tension between City Hall and the union who sits in the mayor's chair will need to resolve these issues, building sustainable relationship to keep Cedar Falls moving forward.
Thank you, Kristen. And Drew, you went door knocking with Mayor Cruz, as he said a couple times. What was that like?
I did. We went around and we knocked on quite a few doors. Let's see what it looked like.
On October 13th, Mayor John Cruz went door-to-door campaigning in an effort to get re-elected. Running for his 16th term of Cedar Falls, he began his life in the public eye in 1971, and he has only taken 2 breaks in those 44 years of service.
You want to go every area of the city, you can. I'm not gonna. I got 12 other people do some of this in certain streets. Somebody just turned in some today.
Cedar Falls has thrived and is one of the safest and friendliest cities in Iowa.
How are you?
Hi, good. It's good.
How are
Going
you?
door to door.
Nice to see you, John.
Pass tag on to Jenny.
Yes.
Yeah. TV had Southern Cup game. I don't know.
Yeah. You can keep it, yeah.
Can you sign it for it? Autograph it.
While door-to-door knocking, Cruz was asked questions about controversial issues that have risen in his past term, specifically the roundabouts on University Avenue.
So they put in 4. He did. Okay, but they put in 4 of them.
Yeah.
High school is on one side, and 2,000 people in Pioneer Seed get out. So I mean, the council, the 4 words to the city is, the first 4 words is the city needs to maintain and enhance the safety. And there's thousands of people every year get hit at red lights. People run red lights too fast, and they don't, because yellow, the problem is yellow means exactly opposite to some people. It's supposed to mean slow down, proceed to stop. But for some people it means gun it.
Yeah.
And they don't always get there before the red, and somebody takes off, they get a green, and unfortunately people turn their brain off. They think, oh, I got a green arrow, I can go, it's safe.
Journalistically, accompanying Mayor Cruz while he door knocked gave me an insight into his character because he was so unscripted.
Thanks, Drew. Our anchors, Zane and Carly, followed Jim Brown around while he did some door knocking of his own. Morgan, you covered that story with him, so can you tell me what that was like?
Yeah, when Brown came to talk to our class, like the other candidates, specifically he emphasized door knocking as a critical part of his campaigning strategy. Here's a glimpse of Brown implementing that strategy.
The elections for Cedar Falls mayor approaching on November 3rd, Jim Brown has remained persistent in his campaigning.
Hi, sorry for the interruption.
According to a statement from Jim Brown made to an advanced reporting class at the University of Northern Iowa, he has spent roughly $1,500 on flyers while knocking on nearly 5,000 doors. Jim claims that door knocking has been key for his campaign against 30-year incumbent John Cruz and newly announced candidate Dave Halterman. As an expert in business development, Jim wishes to inform, unite, and encourage the community from both behind the scenes and in the front. Brown sees slight vulnerabilities in both of his candidates and believes it is time for change in Cedar Falls.
So the question remains, how will all this shake out now that Mayor Cruz has dropped out and Jim Brown is the elected mayor of Cedar Falls come next year? Before we run out of time, I want to get a few insights from this experience. What was it like covering the story for each of you guys journalistically? We'll start with you, Luda.
Well, for me, it was a good opportunity to see how the mayoral race works, get an experience of talking to the candidates, other people that supported him, and just get a feel of how is it to do as a journalist.
It was good to get out there, start getting your feet wet, and get an experience in journalism. It takes a lot of time and effort, and you actually have to go out and do it, not just sit back and wait for someone else.
Yeah. Morgan?
Yeah, a lot of reiterating of what they said. It was great to get out there and do some real world work and real life experiences and be able to see how things we learn in the classroom really transfer into the real world.
Kristen?
I feel like the political campaign that we covered is what many journalists wish they could cover. The campaigns and the candidates themselves were so genuine and caring about the city and the fact that we've had an amazing mayor for so long and that we now have another mayor coming in who cares, the same amount and wants to do great work and continue the great legacy that they have going on is just really amazing to see and cover firsthand.
Yeah, I think that you guys basically said exactly what I was going to say. Just seeing how the candidates react and figuring out how to make a story out of it is just so important for us to do as journalists, and it was good to do it in the real world. So I think now, thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Let's head back to Zane and Carly, and let's wrap up the show.
Thanks, Anton and all the reporters. Yeah, experiencing firsthand the work that went in brought a sense of reality to it all outside the classroom. And for the candidates, we'll be watching as they roll up their sleeves to continue campaigning in the weeks ahead.
That's all the time we have. Thanks so much for watching. Join us next time for another edition of Town News.